For me, talking about Rabbi Tanzer feels very personal. And this whole time of his passing has been for me a deep, deep sense of personal loss, because I discussed so many things with him. I used to spend all of these years being with him on a Friday night in his shul and davening with him, sometimes saying a sermon and sharing words with the community when I had that opportunity. And I always remember, coming down from delivering the sermon, and I would always walk past him, and he would tell me, "Well, that was a good one. That wasn't. That was a real sermon." Sometimes he would say, or sometimes he would say to me, "No, that was just a shiur." And he would always share that wisdom with me. And also I remember on a Friday afternoon, really coming in a bit earlier to shul, and we would talk a little bit before shul started, and we always discussed the week with him and what happened, and he would share his insights, and he had such a tremendous wisdom and perspective, and I really came to rely on that, his friendship, his kindness, and really his mentorship. I looked up to him. So for me, I really feel that I've lost a mentor and someone who guided and gave me so much love and wisdom. And so it's really it's personal. It's not a sense. I know on a communal level we've lost one of the great rabbis of the history of the South African Jewish community. But on a personal level, it's also been a deep sense of loss for me personally. And when thinking about Rabbi Tanzer, to me, his defining essence actually is in his name, because his name was Avraham Chaim. And Avraham, as we know, Abraham, our forefather, and he was exactly like Avraham, because he responded to a call. When God said to Avraham, and he said to him, "Lech lecha me'artzecha," go from your country, from the place of your birth, from your father's home, to the land I will show you. That verse actually encapsulates the life of Rabbi Tanzer, because in November of 1962, the Telzer Rosh Hashiva of Motel Katz came to him and said, there's a school in South Africa, the Yeshiva College School, and it needs an associate Rosh Hashiva, and will you go to South Africa? And he went to discuss that with his Rebbitzin, with Marsha, Shetibadil L'chaim, and they did everything together. And so when paying tribute to Rabbi Tanzer, our thoughts and prayers are with Marsha, and our gratitude with Marsha for everything that they did together as a couple, because they did it all together as a couple, as a partnership, as a husband and wife, as a rabbi and a rebbitzin. And they had to make that decision that they're going to leave America in November 1962 and go to a country that they'd never seen, El Haaretz Asher Echa, to the land that I will show you. And they were, I remember them telling me, and it's also published in the book of the biography of their lives, when they said to, Rabbi Tanzer said at the time to Rav Motel Katz, he said to him, "But, it's so far, I've never been there before, and it's such a faraway place in Africa." And so Rav Motel Katz said to him, "Well, if I was offering you a position, in Seattle, Washington, would you go to that?" And he said, "Yeah." Well, so he said, "Well, that's a flight of a number of hours. So once you're flying, just keep flying, and you'll get to Africa." And that's how he came here. He came, him and his Rebbitzin Marsha came to Johannesburg, and they arrived in early 1963. And what's important to remember is that Glen Hazel in 1963 looked nothing like it does today. Today, where there's a shul on every block, and a schools, and a thriving Torah place full of restaurants and bakeries, kosher bakeries and butcheries, and thriving Jewish life. In those days, it just wasn't like that at all. Johannesburg wasn't, and certainly not Glen Hazel. I mean, to the extent that there were so few shuls in the area that when the original Yeshiva College main shul started, there was a delegation that came from Sydenham Highlands North Shul to say to them, "Well, why are you starting a new shul? We've already got a shul in the area," and that was in Sydenham. So that was the closest shul, and yet today there's a shul on every block. It's thriving Jewish life. And Johannesburg, in those days, Johannesburg was a place in which Torah and Yiddishkeit was weakening. It was not strengthening. In fact, the Yeshiva College is named after Rav Yitzchak Kosovsky. It's called the Beit Yitzchak. And Rav Yitzchak Kosovsky was one of the Gedolim, one of the great rabbis of Europe, and he came to South Africa to serve as the Av Beis Din. But in his early years when he came here, he was interviewed by a newspaper that asked him, is there a future for Judaism in the community, because the youth are leaving Judaism in their droves, and will there be a future for it? So when Rabbi Tanzer came in, he came into an environment in which the youth had been leaving Judaism for many years, and there was weakening of Yiddishkeit on all different levels. And what Rabbi Tanzer did was he didn't predict the future, he created it. And together with Marsha, they created a community. They built up the school, which was at the time Yeshiva College was a fledgling school. They didn't just predict the future, they created the future together. And what Rabbi Tanzer did was then to build a shul in a campus, and the school, which was just a fledgling school at the time, Yeshiva College, he built it up into an incredible edifice and institution of Torah learning, and educated generations of students. And those generations of students went out into the South African Jewish community, went to Jewish communities all over the world to strengthen Yiddishkeit, to strengthen Torah, and he changed the trajectory of so much that is in our South African Jewish community by his efforts, which he did with gentleness and with kindness. And that's, when I was thinking, to me, when I think about Rabbi Tanzer, I think about Abraham, our forefather, because in the same way that Abraham, our forefather, was an incredible pioneer, and he went out to a country he didn't know, and he went to build a whole world around the values that God gave him, so too Rabbi Avraham Tanzer did exactly the same thing. But he did it in the same way as Avraham, because Abraham is defined as Avinu. He's called Avraham Avinu, Abraham our father. And Rabbi Tanzer was a father to this community. And the same way that a parent loves his children, this was the defining essence of his leadership. Because his leadership, he achieved so much, and he was a strong and great leader, but it was a leadership of gentleness and kindness. It was the leadership of a loving father, of a parent who loves his children. It was a leadership of gentleness and persuasion and education. It wasn't a leadership of harshness and brashness and force. And that's how he won over so many people. And our sages teach us that students are considered to be the children of the one who teaches them Torah. And so he was a father. He was a father to his own family, and he raised an incredible family of Torah personalities who are making a contribution both here and all over the world. But also, what Rabbi Tanzer did was he became a father to all of his students. Talmidim Haram Kabanim, students are like children. He raised up a generation of children, generations, thousands of students who became, in a certain sense, his children that he nurtured, and he nurtured with love and care and devotion, pouring himself into them. And those students then went on to change the world. And so his impact has been so profound, so deep, but he did it as a father filled with love, and that's something which is so touching. And to me also, it connects to another dimension of who he was, the sense of being a spiritual father to this community, and sharing that love with so many people. There's one of the things that he loved to teach more than I think anything else was Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers. And it's so significant to me that he was Avraham Avinu. He was like Abraham our father, Rabbi Avraham Tanzer, and he taught Pirkei Avot. And Pirkei Avot is all about leadership. It's all about the Masorah, the tradition that we receive going all the way back to Sinai. He was a link in that tradition. But also Pirkei Avot is about being a mensch. It's about being a person of character, of ethics, of kindness, of compassion, of wisdom, of humility. He was all those things. If Pirkei Avot could turn into a person, if a person could personify, if Pirkei Avot could turn into a human being, into a rov, into a personality, then Rabbi Tanzer would be it. He's a personification. He was a personification of all of those values. And so he was a father in his core, in his essence, because he taught Torah. He reached out to so many people. He nurtured entire generations of students, and that is something which is so special. And in so doing, he changed the trajectory of this community in the most profound way. And so with his passing, In a certain sense, we are all orphaned. But at the same time, that empowers us with a vision. Because the Talmud says that Bra Kara Davua, that a child is the extension of a father. And that means that we have a duty and a mission to him and to his legacy to continue the values that he taught, to be people who will continue to learn and spread the beautiful teachings of Hashem's Torah, to be people who will live up to the standards of his menschlichkeit, of his decency, of his compassion, of his kindness, to be people who will be devoted to the community like he was, spreading and sharing and building and making a difference, and continue that vision. Because when he came to South Africa, he came with a vision of the Telzer Rosh Hashivas who sent him here, who realized that after the destruction of the Holocaust, the Jewish world needed to be rebuilt. And he came on that mission together with Rebitz and Marsha, and they came and they built. And now our duty and mission is to continue the mission that he began, to continue to build and to strengthen our community, to continue to learn Torah and to spread its light and wisdom to as many people as we can, to nurture a new generation of South African Jews in the values of our Torah, and to do so with kindness and with compassion and with dedication and with refinement and with menschlichkeit and with humility in the spirit of the way that he lived his life and the way that he gave all of us so much love and devotion. And so that's our rallying call as a community. We must rise to this occasion, and we must live up to the legacy that he created over all of these years, over these decades of year in and year out selfless dedication, profound and compassionate leadership, which changed the trajectory of a community. For me personally, it was a deep privilege to know Rabbi Tanz and to be close to him and to be the recipient of his wisdom and his love. And so many of us can say the same thing. And so let's live up to that legacy and to ensure that his work and his life and his light continues to flourish in our community. And so what we need to do is to go forward and be loyal to the legacy and to the values that he lived his life by. The way that we can truly honor the memory of Rabbi Avraham Tanzer is to live up to his vision and his legacy and his values, and to continue to make the world into a better place and spread the light of his teachings, the light of his love and compassion to all around us, to strengthen our community and to build a brighter future together.